Welcome everyone to this Kyligence webinar on Kyligence Pivot to Snowflake. I'm George Demres, Head of Marketing at Kyligence, and with me is Solution Architect Rachel Bedore, and we're going to talk about this solution from Kyligence. Here's our agenda: why, what, how, and who. Well, why do I care about pivot tables on Snowflake? What is Kyligence Pivot to Snowflake? How does it work? And who is Kyligence? So first, why? Why do I care about pivot tables on Snowflake? Well, first, Excel is fairly popular. 750 million users, still very relevant. It's 35 years old now, so suffice it to say, it is still a very important BI tool used by a lot of people. And pivot tables in particular are one of the more powerful analytical tools in Excel, and they are very popular. You see Udemy has over 10,000 courses that mention pivot tables. Students have written over 187,000 essays that involve pivot tables. And if you go to LinkedIn, there are over 300,000 people that have pivot tables somewhere in their profile. So it's once again very popular. And on top of that, Snowflake could probably do quite well. As we know, they've had a blockbuster IPO. They've been doing very well, and they have some good growth numbers that kind of support all the hype about it. So yes, we think it's a winner. They've done a good job on the product. It's a cloud-native data warehouse, and so it would be great if you could use pivot tables in Excel against Snowflake, but Snowflake doesn't support Excel pivot tables. Which if you go onto their site and go into their communities and look around, they really don't have a solution. There are some solutions out there. They're not very good. So this is the problem. One of the problems that that Kyligence, our platform, does solve for you. And so let's look at that. What is Kyligence Pivot to Snowflake? Well, it's just as it sounds. It is basically support for pivot tables against Snowflake data. It is seamless and transparent to the user. There's no client, no Excel, no add-ons, nothing to install. You just use Excel as you use it, use pivot tables as you use them, and the solution is on AWS and Azure. And Snowflake is not changed either. It's just support for pivot tables and Snowflake, and using the MDX protocol, which is the Microsoft protocol to do pivot tables and among other things. So the question then is, how is it done? And how does it work? And for that, we're going to demonstrate the solution. And for that, I'm going to introduce Rachel Bedore, Solution Architect from Kyligence. Rachel, take it away.
Thanks, George. So first, I'm going to show you guys my data in Snowflake. This is data from a publicly available database that shows movie ratings from the early 2000s. So it's people rating different movies on this website called Movie Lens. So in the 1 million schema I'm going to show today, it has lots of demographic data that's really interesting. So I want to take a look at that just to show you kind of the schema. We have different users and their locations, etc. So I'm going to go over to Kyligence Cloud and just show you the model we have for this. So what a model is just kind of showing Kyligence how the data is related to each other. So for example, the ratings is joined with dates, and movies and users, which is joined with locations and occupations. So I built that model. That only takes a few minutes. And importing the data not importing, but connecting the data with Snowflake only takes a few minutes as well. You just type in your Snowflake information and it pulls in the metadata, which allows you to build this model without actually pulling in the full data. So then I built an MDX layer, a data set in MDX. And that's also pretty simple. We have a wizard that kind of does it for you. So I can just go through that. And MDX, again, George mentioned this is Microsoft's query language. It allows you to kind of make a little bit more elegant measures, calculations, as well as change some of the dimension names to be something more reasonable for business users. So we could change these names, we can create name sets, and I've done calculations like average and year over year. There's a lot you can do with this. So I'm just kind of going to skip through the rest. We're just going to kind of do the bare minimum for this demonstration. And now let's get to the good stuff. Let's connect to Excel. So to do this, I almost always just follow a tutorial we have on the website. It generates the server you have to use, so it's a lot easier. So first, I'm going to go into Excel. I'm going to do data, get data from database, from analysis service. I'm going to go back and get that server name, put it in, and I'm going to log in with my Kyligence account. So I'm going to choose 1 million. That's the one we want to do. And I'm going to just kind of go through the wizard and finish. It should be auto-populated, so it's pretty easy. And there you have it. Now we have the pivot table, so we can start playing around with our data and exploring. So say I want to explore how different occupations, people in different occupations rate movies differently. So I can drag in occupation. I built a hierarchy with movies. It includes genre, a subgenre, and the title of the movie. I'm going to put that in the column field. And I'm going to show average rating as my measure. So now let's kind of filter a little bit because we probably only want to look at a couple things. So I'm going to look at comedy and documentary because those are very distinct, kind of interesting genres. And I'm just going to look at a few of the occupations. So let's look at like academic / educator, maybe an artist. Let's put in lawyer, programmer, and we can do engineer as well. So before we go further with this, I kind of want to show you how this is querying directly on Snowflake. So we're not actually querying on any data that Kyligence has. We're querying directly to Snowflake. And I can actually show you that by pulling up the query history. So you can see here, it says like select movies, main genre. That was what we just did. So it generated that query into Snowflake. So there's no data being pulled into Kyligence when we do it like this. Now back to our pivot table, let's do a pivot chart. That makes it a little bit easier to kind of look at the data. That's one of the fun things about working with pivot tables. Let's see who likes documentaries more. So I'm going to sort this large to small. And it changes the chart. It's nice. Pivot table. And you can tell right away that lawyers seem to like documentaries a lot more than programmers. And that almost everybody seems to like documentaries more than comedy. So that might be a point where if you're exploring this data, you might drill down into comedy to look at the subgenres. So when we do that, the pivot table automatically updates. And you can see now actually that while people do like this light blue one is documentary. So while people do like the documentaries a lot more than 3 of the subgenres with comedies, they actually kind of seem to like this one subgenre, animated comedy, about the same as they like documentaries. So for somebody analyzing this data, that might be a point where they're like, let's take a look at animated comedy. So I'm gonna go down and just look at animated comedy. And now let's sort to see who likes animated comedies the most and who likes the least. So it looks like artists seem to like animated comedies the most, and academic educator seems to like it the least. So I don't know why teachers don't like animated comedy that much. Maybe they see too many animations in their classes. Who knows? But this is an example of how somebody might be working with Snowflake data through pivot tables to explore their data. So just to recap, we are querying directly into Snowflake, and it took us just a few seconds to connect in with that server. So thank you. Back to you, George.
Thanks, Rachel. Clearly, it shows how you can get creative with pivot tables, but also how seamless it was, and there was no no crazy setup. It seemed like pretty straightforward, and taking 15 minutes or so to get it all working. That's a pretty good demonstration of the benefit of Kyligence Pivot to Snowflake. So once again, to summarize, seamless user experience. It was just pivot tables against Snowflake, solved a very basic problem, and no client configuration, and there was wizards and things filled out for you. So pretty straightforward, supported on AWS and Azure, and brings you pivot tables in all their glory against Snowflake data. So just want to finish out by telling a little bit more about Kyligence, who we are. We are the company that brings you the commercial product based upon Apache Kylin, which is a top level Apache project, award winning over the years. It's the point of Kylin was to deliver basically distributed OLAP sub-second interactive queries against very, very large data sets used by over 1,000 organizations around the world. The company was founded in 2016, and what we have done is we've added intelligence, we've added AI-assisted data modeling. The data model Rachel showed was pretty simple, but for much more complex data models, we have AI-assisted modeling. We also provide that transparent semantic layer that Rachel demonstrated. We were a top 10 big data startup in 2018 from CRN, and we're headquartered in San Jose and Shanghai. And you see our funding and our VCs there. Just an example of the larger platform. So besides that semantic layer and MDX connectivity that is part of the Kyligence Pivot to Snowflake solution, the broader product enables companies to do OLAP at an astounding scale. So one of the top 10 global investment banks migrated the second largest Microsoft SSAS environment to Azure that is over 100 plus terabytes of cube data into a single distributed Kyligence cube on Azure. Another company, Shanghai-based Union Pay, one of the largest, if not the largest credit card supplier in the world, migrated 1,200 Cognos OLAP cubes to 2 Kyligence cubes, and you can imagine the efficiencies, the maintenance savings, the labor savings, and they got also 10x faster performance and more stable analytics. Another SaaS provider in the US provides their customers with interactive analytics. And so 95% of those queries return less than 2 seconds for over 100 plus concurrent users. So the full-blown Kyligence platform is not just about connecting Excel and Snowflake, but making Snowflake queries go way faster, even on huge, petabyte data warehouses in Snowflake, but also in cloud storage and like S3 or Azure data lake storage and so forth. So the full-blown architecture is the Kyligence supports any data platform, cloud data warehouses, data lakes, any cloud, including on-prem with Hadoop, but Azure, Amazon, soon Google. And the core product supports low latency queries transparently to any BI tool, including Excel, Tableau, Power BI, MicroStrategy, Qlik, and so forth. But we also serve very fast data for machine learning applications. And as I mentioned, for SaaS infrastructure, SaaS companies that want to provide analytics to their customers can do so in a very fast and scalable manner with Kyligence. And what Kyligence does, it provides this intelligent pre-computation layer, basically distributed OLAP cubes in the cloud that enables that sub-second response time against very large data sets. So, and that semantic layer is what makes it transparent and easy for end users to use. They will not be aware of the presence of Kyligence. You'll just see fast query response. So that is the Kyligence solution. Um, the Kyligence Pivot to Snowflake solution is what we talked about today. It's that seamless experience, access to Snowflake data via pivot tables. Simple, easy, available today. If you have interest in seeing the solution or giving it a try, contact us with the following information. You see our website, our email address, our Twitter handle, and you can also learn more about Apache Kylin. So that brings us to the end of this short presentation. Pretty straightforward. We're the best bet for enabling pivot tables on Snowflake, and then we provide a lot more when you need it. So thanks very much. Thank you, Rachel, for your participation and your demonstration, and thanks for joining us.